All right, guys, welcome to this week's episode of the Premier Esports Academy web series. Before we get into it, I just wanted to let you guys know this week's going to be a little less of a video and a bit more of the audio. My video decided to lag out, so I decided to take funny screenshots of the video instead and make my own little lag reel. So feel free to just follow the audio this week, but if you want to see some funny screenshots, feel free to tune in. So thanks for joining us, and here is your video. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of the Premier Esports Academy web series. My name's Dan Himmelstein, founder and brain coach of Premier Esports Academy, and today we're going to be diving into the second part of our Flow Experience series. So last week, we talked about the challenge skill balance, which is the first aspect of flow. It's a very important concept, one of the most valuable, because it really is in your control. It's something that you can control in the moment, which is super important because we love to control what we can control. There was actually a video on that a couple weeks ago, controlling the controllables. Things that are in our control, in our power, especially in the moment, are going to be super, super helpful in making sure that we're in the right state of mind to complete the task at hand, whatever that may be. So this week, we're going to be talking about part 2 of the flow experience, and that's going to be action awareness merging. So what is action awareness merging? How does it help us enter a state of flow? That's what I'm going to tell you about today. So action awareness merging, in essence, is feeling one with emotions, feeling one with the movements that you're making. So there's a lot of ways to conceptualize this in esports, and this is going to be pretty different for everyone and how they experience it, and from esport to esport. So I'll be talking mostly in terms of first-person shooters today, just to give you guys a good idea of what this can mean for your esport. So, FPS, we're thinking Overwatch, we're thinking Counter-Strike, those types of games. So action awareness merging, feeling one with the movements. What does that mean? So in my eyes, it really becomes, full control, full absorption in the task at hand that's going to give you this action awareness merging. So the way I'm envisioning it is it's going to be, your vision in the game isn't actually being controlled by your hand. It's really just being controlled on where you want to look, and that's a seamless type of integration where there's no focus on what you're actually doing with your mouse hand, and you're just going through the motions the way they're supposed to be executed, the way that your mind is executing these motions. So that's merging that action and that awareness piece. And in order for this to actually work, you have to be totally absorbed in the task at hand. So nothing else is really entering your stream of consciousness. It's really just what needs to be done in this specific moment that's going to really help you get into this flow state, or be apparent when you're in this flow state. Now, as I mentioned in my last video, and it's very important to mention this, and I'll mention this again probably in every one of these parts, so keep this in mind. The more you try and enter a flow state, the less likely it is that you will enter that flow state, because your mind is actually thinking about other things and trying to enter this flow state. It won't allow you to be fully absorbed in the task at hand. So it's a very important caveat that I mentioned that, the more we try and enter this flow state, the less likely we are to enter it. These videos are simply to provide you with some resources on what this flow state might be to help influence it in the future. So I can't emphasize that part enough, so keep that in mind. But it's important to learn what these types of things are and how they might be experienced and how you might feel them. That way, when we reflect on them, we can say, okay, well, this is what I did beforehand. How can we repeat these experiences and try and get back into this flow state? Because as I mentioned, being in a flow state can also be associated with optimal enjoyment. It's a very enjoyable experience. If you've ever experienced it, you would know that everything's just in control. You're making all the right calls, and we'll actually get into a lot of that stuff later. Feeling of control. But this action awareness merging piece, it's really going to be a case-by-case basis, so I can't really say all that much about it. But again, it's just being able to not only make the right calls, but to execute the right calls, to execute the right mechanics that are necessary for that situation. So, couple action plans. I always like to end with an action plan or two. Make sure that your training is good. And, that goes without saying, obviously, but make sure that you're training, different types of mechanics that will allow you to merge these actions. Because if you don't have good mechanics, it's going to be really hard to enter that flow state. But, like I said in the last video, if you're balancing that challenge and skill, which is going to be absolutely essential for making sure that we are able to merge our action and our awareness, making sure that we're balancing that that perceived challenge and that perceived skill is going to really help us along the lines. Because if we're sitting there frustrated that, we don't think we're good enough, or we think we're much better than our opponents, we're not going to be able to experience this type of, effortless control, let's put it, that we need, or that we require to be in a state of flow. So that's going to be first action plan, is to make sure you have really good training. Second action plan, watch the video on challenge skill balance. It's really going to help you transition to this action awareness merging, where we're just feeling one with our movements. And, it's almost, the movements in the game are an extension of our own mind. It's doing exactly what we think it should be doing, because we're making all the right moves, all the right mechanical and strategic moves. So those are going to be my 2 action plans. Again, this is part 2 of the 7 part flow series. So if you haven't yet, make sure you go back and watch that first video on challenge skill balance. Nothing is going to be more in your control than that. So definitely take a look at that. As always, make sure you follow me on Twitter. My handle is on the bottom right hand of your screen. It's at @dhims_esports or @dims_esports. Make sure you subscribe to the channel so you see when part 3 comes out. It'll be coming out in about a week. It might take me a couple days, since I will be away this weekend presenting at St. Louis College Esports Expo. Make sure you tune into that. It's going to be a really great event. That'll be on Saturday, April 29th. We're going to have really cool presenters. I'll be presenting on biofeedback. Allison, the other brain coach at Premier eSports Academy, will be presenting on performance psychology. Those will be streamed on Twitch. They'll be on the Twitch homepage as well. So definitely give that a look. And then on Sunday, I'll be presenting at DreamHack Austin. If you're going to be at DreamHack Austin, make sure to reach out, get in contact with me. Let's touch base. These events are for networking, connecting, and I'd love to sit down and have a conversation, get chit chat, get bounce some ideas off of each other, and I'm really looking forward to a great weekend. So again, next week's episode might be a day or 2 late, since I will be traveling, but stay tuned. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel to see when it comes out. Thanks.